Okay, so peace, peace, peace. So I'm inside again. I couldn't get myself together today to get outside. But the sound will be better. So I'm grateful for that. Um, Pray you all are well. Peace, peace, peace. So today we're going to talk about the myth of the um what is it? The socially isolated homeschool child. Okay, that's a fallacy. So that does not I think we see homeschooling on TV, excuse me, and it's one poor child in the house by themselves and they don't get to see anybody. The only time there was anything close to reality like that was COVID. And even with that, we found ways around it. So I'll get to that in a second. This also ties into what I said about the necessity for community. So when I first started homeschooling, okay, when I first started homeschooling, I actually started out doing a like in uh, preschool Head Start type thing. And once it was clear that my daughter needed to truly be in academics, and we reached out to other families who wanted to go in the same direction. Some of them who had been homeschooling, and maybe their babies might have been by themselves because they had to go to work, and the child had to sit with another family member for the day. But then it was like, well, she needs to have some friends with her. And they had friends. They had friends that they did African dance class with, and different activities in the community, different things that their father and I were involved in. And then, so they knew other children and families who were involved in those things as well. So when we started the homeschool co-op, we like sent in all call out. This is what we're going to do. We shouldn't do it alone. We should all do it together. And the very first year that the co-op started, I had 5 children. One was an infant. That was my craziness that I did that I can't believe I still did. 2, 5, 6, if you count my infant. So there were 6 children and me. And we were in the townhouse of one of the children's fathers. And his daddy and his uncle shared the space. So we did school in the upstairs space. It wasn't where they lived. His uncle did, but we did school. Our co-op was in the upstairs space. So that's where we were, and we were there for hmm, maybe a school, maybe a school year before we moved into the annex of, or like maybe a Sunday school room of one of the local churches. Another organization had been in there. Another African centered, not co-op, but education center had been in that room. So we went into that room. It's the other way around. We started in that room, then we went to the apartment. And then from that apartment, we went to my house. So in our home, which was not a very big home, our whole downstairs turned into the schoolroom. One side ended up being the carpet on the floor, the mats, the little bean bags, so that we could watch videos or put lessons up on the wall. Our backyard ended up being the playground, and where we would have eaten, where our dining table used to be, became a small early elementary table with little yellow chairs around it. So we would eat dinner as adults and children who live in the house sitting at one of those kind of tables. It was quite a ride. Um, but in that time, we went from the 6 children that I started with to a total of 16 children, 10 families. It was 6 children, 4 families, including mine, when we started. And when everyone moved out of the house, it was 16 children, 10 families. Because the children are connected not just academically. So it wasn't just our homeschool co-op they were connected in. They were connected in our spiritual traditions. They were connected in cultural practice, the dancing, the drumming that they would do. We would do a lot of field trips. We connected with other homeschool co-ops that were doing similar things, and maybe they had older children. We invited other co-ops who were starting to go with us on field trips. So they met an abundance of people. And then we worked really hard to make sure that we still do, that there were parties and sleepovers and cookouts and all kinds of things that would happen at the house to make sure that the children are connected. And to date, my children still play with and hang out with most, if not all, most, most of those children, because the connections between the families still exist. They see each other at Kwanzaa. If we're celebrating Umoja Karamu, they're often invited over. If there's, there's the other blessing about community and the children never being isolated is that when the community has its own set of values and practices, then the children's calendar is not run by. If you are if you are doing the regularly scheduled program, then you come to the summer and or even before the summer, somewhere around May or April, there's the summer. We're getting ready for summer. So you start hearing about all the summer things. Oh shoot, before that. Now. So like this is being recorded in February. So right now we're hearing about all the summer school programs and the camps and the da 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 da. So by the time the school year ends, you are prepared to go into your summer camp. And then by the time you get to summer camp, you are going to have certain national celebrations. So now there's Juneteenth, and then you have the 4th of July, and then whatever other things happen in the summer. And this is the regularly scheduled program. So even people who may not necessarily celebrate, I should slow down, sorry, may not necessarily celebrate Juneteenth, do have that federal holiday off. And then we have Memorial Day, and by the time you are beyond July 4th and headed to Memorial Day, you are in the back to school sales. So the back to school sales have to happen. And then you have your Labor Day, and then generally school starts, on the East Coast. But when I was growing up, sometimes it started before then. So you have that. And then you get to school year starts, and almost as soon as the school year starts and you get beyond the back to school celebrations, sales, stickers, whatever, you're into Halloween. And as soon as Halloween is done, you're into Thanksgiving. And as soon as Thanksgiving is done, you're into Christmas. As soon as Christmas is sort of finished, you're in your New Year's celebration, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day. Here come the Easter sales and all the little eggs. Mother's Day, Father's Day, and you're back where you started. So the blessing of community and our children being very well socialized was that their calendar was very different. Their calendar was marked by the afashes or celebrations that were in our community. It was marked by the celebrations that were in their family. Um, it took, it was years before my children even knew some of these holidays existed because we didn't recognize it. We don't recognize them in our home. So their setting up of their year was, oh, we're headed to this festival. It's time for that. Oh, we're getting ready to do this celebration. It's time for that. We're getting ready to do this community celebration. We're getting ready to do this family celebration. So the support of community, keeping them socialized, but also keeping them on their own schedule that was not calibrated to capitalism or gimme, gimme, gimme. Because underneath all of those regularly scheduled programs that I mentioned is what can I get? What do I need to buy? What clothes can I buy for the children for the new year so that they feel good? What, as a child, can I ask for so that I can come back to school stunting on them in my new clothes and feeling like, I changed over the summer and I got that new. Uh, what can it just goes on and on of what to spend, what to buy, what to procure. And they didn't have any of those things. They had celebrations to participate in. They had people to play with. They had that. So there was no shortage. Now I will say, when COVID came, it was very hard. It was very hard. And I'm assuming it was hard for everybody because I know children were home, not just homeschool children. But it was hard because all of the things we had programmed, um, including the field trips and the regular connection with their friends, didn't happen at the same frequency. For the co op, we started moving our field trips outside. We were masked up if we were together, and it would be small groups. It would be everybody all at once. And that was hard. Um, and as they got older and moved into more online schooling, it became especially for my oldest, it became her only source of connection, which was, difficult, difficult. But I will say, On the other side of that, the part of socialization that everyone says, this is what is normal, and this is what the regular children get, as opposed to the irregular homeschool children get in school, is this abundance of socialization. But I went to public school, and I will say, I don't remember an abundance of socialization. What I remember is an abundance of children. I remember my friends that I hung out with. I remember that still being a small pocket. And so I also remember it being a large work of shifting, sorting, and discerning. And I know that happens in every space. But there was much more. Where do I fit? Where should I be? Um, Code changing. I mean, code switching, and just so many things to find a place of comfort and safety that my children in homeschool spaces and community never had to deal with. Not to that degree. They still had to shift through friends and figure out if this worked for them, or, but to that degree, no. No, not like that. So when people say that, how are they going to be socialized? The real question is, how are any of these children socialized when they're in public school? You can't just throw a bunch of kids on the pile and be like, everybody's making friends, or that they all feel safe in their bodies and their nervous system, that they're not being bullied, that they're not trying to alter themselves, that, all the things that many of us remember being in school. So, yeah, the default setting is not the best setting. There are other ways to navigate. And so when we hear of like organizations that make sure that children after school are still meeting for activities or for cultural support or whatever have you, that's the socialization. That is that is being with like minds. Um, that is finding common ground and common activities. The things that gave me socialization were the things that I had in common with people, was the things that I participated in. So the same thing happened in our homeschool experience. So yes, the myth of the poor, unsocialized, isolated homeschool child who doesn't know how to talk to anyone and can't go off to college and all those things, which isn't true. I'll talk about that later, as I've talked before. Is that my eldest born went from all the way homeschooled all the way through, right on to college. And she's doing a bang up job. I've said that before too. But yeah, okay. Whew, still warm. And it's getting my bedtime. So this is Reverend Okomfo's sister, Mwalimu Yogi, Mama Adia, saying it's a myth. It's a myth. They're not isolated homeschool children, and we have to decide what socialization looks like. We have to decide as their parents, not let external forces decide. All right. See you later. Peace.